careful. You don't want to get into a situation that's problematic. On the other hand, we don't want to live in constant fear of other people. So knowing that people are wary of altruism, and they might say, "Oh, do you have ulterior motives?" It's all the more reason to, as George said, to be authentic, to be real, to give and not expect anything in return, and also to remember that our efforts of Christian witness are for the long term. And we're not just talking years; we're talking the kingdom, right? So if we're altruistic and we're generous and we're kind, and maybe someone never says, "Oh my gosh, that Christian was so good to me, I want to come to the church and I want to be a Christian too." Well, that's okay. That's okay, because that's not our objective. Our objective simply is Christ doesn't say, love your neighbor, love God and love your neighbor so that he becomes a Christian. Jesus doesn't say that. He simply says, love your neighbor. And so we do that in humility. And not knowing whether or not knowing how our actions will play out. There's a really quick story I'll tell. I'll pass the microphone. Saints Cyril and Methodius, who are known as the evangelizers of the Slavs, they went basically into the Slavic lands. They didn't actually go to Russia. They went a little bit southwest of Russia. They ministered. They created a new written alphabet based on they created the Cyrillic alphabet. They ministered. They taught. They worked, and they were a total failure. They basically came back. They had tried to start a church there, and it didn't really work out. And they came back, and in their lifetime, they could have thought, and maybe they did, think that they were total failures. But now, in retrospect, they're recognized as evangelizers of the Slavs. So the point is to always remember that what we do, there may not be fruits for what we do until our great-great-grandchildren are alive. We just don't know. And so that's one of the mysteries of living a Christian life, is to live according to the commandments of Christ in faith, not demanding to see the outcome or demanding to see the results of our own work. That's God's business. That's God's business. Let Him kind of take the accounting of what we've done.
One person asked, is salvation only through Christ? And they say, what about the non-believers who have never heard about Christ? So if we read in John 3, verse 18, it says, "He who believes in him is not condemned, but he who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God." And when you read it, it's pretty clear. Okay? It's saying salvation is only through faith in Christ. And if you look at it in the Old Testament, you had people who were very righteous people like Moses and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph the righteous, and these people. After they departed, where did they go? They went to Hades, right? God did not look at them and say, you know what, because you were so great, because you were prophets, and because you were so obedient, then you get to come to paradise. Because the doors of paradise at that time were closed, because Christ had not yet incarnated and was crucified and resurrected. So that is to say this is what God is revealing to us. He is saying that it is only through faith in Christ that we are saved. Now, does that mean that God does not care about other people? Does that mean that people who live in countries, for instance, like China or Saudi Arabia, where Bibles are outlawed and you can't have churches and you can't pray? Does that mean that God says, "Well, sorry guys, you guys don't, you missed out"? Okay? No. See, God loves everyone, and God works through the natural law in us. For instance, when you look at the example of Cornelius, okay? Cornelius was a Gentile centurion, right? He was not a Jew. So according to the law, he had no salvation. He was not among the people of God. And yet, what happened to him? He followed the natural law inside of him, and he did good works. And then an angel appeared to him and says, "What, your works and your alms have come up as a memorial before God. Go and call for St. Peter to come and to preach to you." So in Jeremiah chapter 29, it says what? "You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart." So whether we are born as Christians or Orthodox Christians or Muslims or whatever it is, someone who is sincerely seeking the truth and is not just seeking something that validates what they want to do. A lot of times that's what we want. Is we have a certain lifestyle and we want to pick a religion that validates what we want. Actually, even as Christians, sometimes we wish that the things that God commanded is different. I mean, we wish God was maybe more validating of what I want to do, but He's not. He's telling us this is the standard, this is the law, this is what it is we have to aspire to, this is the Ten Commandments. So if someone is sincerely seeking God, then they will find Him. This is what He said. "You will find me when you seek me with all your heart." So our question should not be, we're framing the question wrong. We're framing it as though, you have these people that are living in a certain place or, have never heard about Christ, and so they're victims, and they are, somehow being dealt a lesser hand than the rest of us. That's not actually the case. You can have people who are in the church, who were born in the church, that are lost, right? Because even though we have been given everything, maybe we don't make use of it. And you can have people who were born far, far away from the church in an atheist country, and then they, in the end, can be saved because they believe in Christ. Right? So we shouldn't try to pick apart the details of maybe how that's going to happen, but we have faith and we believe in God that He is good and He is just and He is righteous and He is merciful and loving, to where He's not going to leave a person to say, okay, you know what, sorry, you were born in this situation, so I'm not going to give you a chance. No, God gives chances. Maybe we don't understand the details of how He gives a chance to each person, but He gives a chance. Now the other thing, when we read this verse, when we say, well, he who believes in Him is not condemned, but he who does not believe is condemned already, this should be a motivator to us. What is our motivation for evangelism? It's because we identify that there are people that are in danger. I like to use this analogy. Like, imagine you're in a room, and on the room there's like two lines of people. There's one line of people. And they're walking up all the way to the end, and there's two doors. And there's like a guard at the doors, and he's directing some people to go to one door, and he's directing other people to go to a different door. And you don't know what's behind the door. Nobody knows what's behind the door. And you see also that there's a table, and there's blue cards on the table, and there's red cards. And everybody walks into the room, they tell them, pick a card. So some people pick blue cards, some people pick red cards, they don't know what the cards are about. Everybody has a card, and then they go on the line. So this one person, very sneaky guy, he decides that he's going to skip the line, and he's going to go all the way to the front and kind of take a peek and see what's happening. And he sees that everyone with a blue card is going into a door that's leading into heaven. And he says everyone with a red card, he's telling him to go to a door that leads to heaven. You now, or this person now, with this knowledge and this information, what do you think he's going to do? What is he going to do? Okay, he's going to click the blue card, yes. That's a selfish action for himself. He's going to tell everyone, actually, if you were aware of this, aren't you going to go around to all the people in the room like, hey, everybody, all you people
take the red card!
Yeah, if you have a red card, you better put it back, and you have to get a blue card, right? So your evangelism, in this case, is based on your real understanding of the consequences, right? Just as Christ tells us here. This should be our motivation. But on the contrary, if we have a belief saying, you know what, God is going to save everybody because God is merciful, and He's going to look at people who do good works, and they're going to save. I'm not going to have any motivation to evangelize because I'm just going to be thinking, well, I don't need to. Everybody's good. Everything's good, right? So I have to have in my mind that there are those who are with God and those who are away from God, and I should have a zeal to go after those people who are away from God and bring them. Now that doesn't mean that I'm the judge. It doesn't mean that I'm the one who's going to decide where these people go and where these people go. We're basing it only on what Christ has revealed to us. This is what He has revealed to us. And it doesn't mean that we know how God is speaking into the hearts of people or where their life is eventually going to lead or what kind of faith they might or might not have by the end of their life. But we do our part. We do what it is that God has told us to do.
This question actually came to me not on a piece of paper, but Carla asked this question. How can we call in the commemoration of the saints in the liturgy, we refer to Saint Bishoy as the perfect man, where we understand there's no one who is perfect. How can we call Saint Bishoy the perfect man? My question to you, can we be perfect? Yes, we can. Well, I'll tell you in a second. Yes. It's a verse that says, be perfect as your Father's perfect. But who is being perfect? It is not so much you. So when we refer to Saint Bishoy as the perfect man, it is not so much Bishoy devoid of the Christ in Bishoy. It's the Christ in him who is being revealed more and more and more, so that when people see this saint, they see Christ in him. Thus, they see perfection. You see? St. Paul said in Galatians chapter 4, verse 19, my little children, for whom I labor in birth again, until Christ is formed in you. So we ask ourselves, can we be perfect? Yes, we can. the more and more Christ is formed in me, the more people will see Christ in me. Just like St. Paul also said, it is no longer I, but Christ who lives in me. Now look at all these saints. I say they reached sainthood. I made up this term, this expression, by the power of transparency. I call it the power of transparency, meaning that when you see them, you see the Christ in them, you don't see them individually. That's why in Coptic iconography, you see that the face of all saints is almost identical. You look at all the apostles, all the saints, their face, it looks identical. You know why? Because it's the face of Christ formed in them. I tell my children, when you pray, don't pray and say, I hope to become a good Christian. I don't want you to be good Christians. I want, when people see you, they don't see you as good Christians, but they see the Christ in you. And it's a different, completely different perspective. So Saint Bishoy was perfect? Yes, because people saw Christ in Saint Bishoy. Can we be perfect? Yes, when people see Christ in us. Make sense?
All right, so this is a tough one. I'm going to try to get through it quickly. So, if a Christian asks you why a loving God would be okay with suffering on earth and casting people in hell, what would you answer? The concern is that the nature of God is contradicting his actions. So we have here the ancient question of theodicy. If God is all merciful and loving and kind, why is there so much suffering in the world? And then there's also this question of hell, which is related to the one that Father did. So the one thing, first of all, the question of theodicy is a big one, and I don't think there's a neat, tidy answer to that, but the one way I would encourage you to approach it that's somewhat different than a lot of the ways people approach this question of theodicy, right? If God's a good and loving, merciful God, why would he allow suffering in the world? The first one is to think, and I think about myself, is that whenever I ask that question, the primary motivation, the reason I'm answering it, or asking it often, is because I don't want to suffer. Okay, now, clearly when we see someone else suffering, there's this deep compassion, and we think, like, why is God allowing this person to suffer? But more often than not, the impetus for, and the underlying presupposition for a question of theodicy is, look, if God was all merciful and loving, he wouldn't make me suffer. If God was all merciful and loving, he'd give me a Mercedes S-Class. If God was all merciful and loving, you see where I'm going, right? It's the idea that if God was merciful and loving, he'd do exactly what I want him to do, okay? So it's kind of that, it's that, you know, that, we're talking about that pagan impulse in the first session, you know, that paganism, that vending machine spirituality. So, and again, I'm not saying you just throw this in someone's face, but as you're discussing, if you're having that discussion with someone, really start, you know, you can start inquiring about, well, what is it that we're really after there, right? What is it that we're after? And now, when it comes to the suffering of the neighbor, and we can say, you know, why does God allow this? Oftentimes, we don't know, and it's okay to say, I don't know why God is allowing this. One of the worst things we can do as Christians, as leaders, evangelists, apologists, is to put a simplistic, superficial answer where none fits, right? If someone comes and says, you know, why is my beloved suffering? If we just say, well, it's because blah, 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 it can be horrible. Because really, the only way that somebody can come to that answer is personally. They can only reflect and ultimately say, I think maybe I know why God allowed this to happen. But the one thing I can say is that oftentimes, just about all the things I've read about theodicy, they act as though the question of theodicy exists totally apart from the crucifixion, which is really interesting. Because God allowed his own son to suffer. Why? Because he wanted to see him suffer? No. Why? Because, you know, somehow Jesus had to suffer in order to, like, pay for the debt of humanity. I mean, Paul does talk about that sacrificial imagery that is in Scripture, but no, that's not fundamental. You know, God is not the ultimate child abuser who seeks to make his own son suffer so that the rest of us don't. Substitutionary atonement, right? We don't go there. But the point is that it's that mystery, the mystery that God does allow suffering in the world. God does allow the good and the innocent to suffer. Sometimes we don't know why, but it is our faith, it is our confession that God knows exactly what he's doing. And that in some mysterious way, as we're faithful, as we are seeking to understand God's will, praying, saying, Lord, I don't know why you're doing this. Please reveal this to me. Give me strength to endure this. That we trust that ultimately God will reveal to us why he has allowed it. So really, to engage in a question of theodicy, really remember the cross. Remember the suffering, the passion, and the death of our Lord and Savior. The other question about hell and why would God send people to hell? If you haven't already read it, I strongly recommend The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. It has nothing to do with the breakup of marriage. It has to do with precisely this question about people going to heaven, people going to hell. It's a very beautiful and creative, like C.S. Lewis is, reflection on this idea of heaven and hell. And the point is that people only end up in hell if they want to be there. That's basically C.S. Lewis's point. And I think that's very much according to the teaching of our church, that no one who truly desires, who repents and says, Lord, I'm a sinful person, I'm imperfect, I've done horrible things, please have mercy on me. I don't know a single person whom our Lord ever said in his earthly ministry, sorry, you're out of luck. Right? I mean, look at the good thief, right? Remember me, O Lord, when you come in your kingdom. That was all he said, right? I'm sure the guy did not live a particularly nice life, and there he was. Jesus said, today you shall be with me in paradise. So only the people who say, no, I want nothing to do with you, God, I want nothing to do with you, Christ, I want my own way, those are the only people who end up in hell. So it's actually, to end up in hell is not like, oh shoot, the math didn't work out for me, I ended up in the red. It's actually the unfortunate outcome of our expression of our free will. And it's that, and some have even said that the fires of hell are the unquenchable love of God, which we always try to run from, but we cannot stand it. And that's what the fire of hell is. It's God's love that now, because we've rejected it, is like a torment to us.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I believe that all those who are in hell are going to be singing together with Frank Sinatra. I did it my way.
There you go. I did it my way. That's right. The other thing too, just one last thing about heaven and hell. It's really, there's a kind of a simplistic approach that some Christians have. Like, well, I do all this so I can get to heaven. Right? And I've even heard some priests preach this way. And now there's truth to that. I'm not saying that there is a last judgment, no question about it. But our sacramental life says that, at least at the beginning of the Divine Liturgy in the Coptic Church, you use the doxology, blessed is the kingdom of the Father and the Son. Do you say blessed is the kingdom? Okay, in the Eastern Rite we say, blessed is the kingdom. So there's this really profound emphasis on the kingdom of heaven when we celebrate the Divine Liturgy. But regardless of how you begin liturgy, the point is that whenever we are in the presence of Christ, we are in God's kingdom. Because Christ is the king. When are you in the kingdom? When the king is there, when you're face to face with the king. And so the kingdom, is really important for us to remember that the kingdom is outside of time. That eternity is, like in geometry, what a ray is? A point and then a line that goes further that way. Oftentimes people think of heaven as like a ray. It's like, okay, I do all my stuff on earth, and then I die, and that's the point, and then heaven goes forever out to eternity. That's not eternity. Eternity, if you think geometry, it's a line. It goes forever this way, and it goes forever that way. It's outside of time. So heaven is now. Our sacramental theology, the witness of the saints, is that inasmuch as we allow God to work in our lives today, we can have a foretaste of that kingdom of heaven. That's why that explains these kind of ecstatic visions and the miraculous lives that we see in the lives of the saints, like Saint Seraphim of Sarov. He's glowing with the uncreated light. Well, what is that? That is a human being who's allowed Christ to live within him so perfectly in this life. So just when you think about heaven and hell and questions like that, it's really important to remember that it's not just about what happens after you die. So yes, there is after we die and there is a judgment. But that the reality of the kingdom of heaven is now, can be now.
Someone says, in the face of violent persecution, are we as Christians always supposed to remain a pacifist? So I want to just kind of understand the word pacifist because it can mean different things. In Scripture, when we speak about, when Christ speaks about taking revenge, when St. Paul is speaking about taking revenge, he says what in Romans chapter 12? He says, repay no one evil for evil, have regard for good things in the sight of all men. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. So when we speak about on a personal level, if somebody harms me in some way, we are called to, if you want to consider that to be called a pacifist, in the sense that we are promoting peace, then yes, we are to promote peace, and we are not to repay evil for evil. Okay? But when you think about it in terms of like the level of a nation, okay, a lot of times in that context, when we speak about someone who is a pacifist, they are against the idea of the nation going to war, or they will not participate in war, or for instance be drafted to the military or things like that. In that context, no, we support the idea of war because God gives the nations the authority to do so. We read this also in Romans chapter 13. Where he says, therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Do you want to be unafraid of the authority? Do what is good, and you will have the praise from the same. Then he says further down, for he is God's minister for you to do good, but if you do evil, be afraid, for he, this is referring to the government, does not bear the sword in vain, for he is God's minister and avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. So the idea that nations go to war is something that is actually could be for the defense of the nation. In that case, there's nothing wrong with participating in such a war, like for instance to defend the people. It's actually a noble and heroic thing to do. There's a story in actually the book of First Maccabees. The First Maccabees, if you're familiar with the story, the nation of Israel is being attacked by the Seleucid Empire, which is the Greeks, and they're wanting to wipe them out. They're wanting to wipe them out not just by killing everyone, but they're wanting to transform their society and force them to accept the Greek culture, to abandon all of the Jewish culture, to abandon the Jewish practices, to no longer circumcise their children, to no longer offer sacrifices, essentially to stop worshiping God. And they build stadiums and they want to, promote the Greek culture among the Jews. And so you see that the Jews, they form kind of three different distinct groups in the way that they respond to this. The first group are the people that just accept whatever that is that are happening. They actually go, they make deals with the Greeks and say, okay, we're going to help you to, come and kind of take over our land and give us good positions, and, we'll cooperate with whatever you're going to do. That's the first group. The second group is a group that says, you know what? We reject whatever this is happening, and we're going to hold fast to our faith, and so we will allow ourselves to be martyred because of this. We're going to not defend ourselves, but we're going to be martyred as a result of, because we don't accept what the Greeks are coming to do. And actually the Greeks were very smart. They understood the Jewish faith, and they knew that the Jews could not fight, for instance, on the Sabbath, so they would attack them on the Sabbath, because there was nothing that they could do. They would just be slaughtered. This was the second group. The third group was a group that identified that if we sit and do nothing, and we allow them to destroy us even as they come in and fight us on the Sabbath, then we will be completely wiped out. So they made a decision. They said that we will fight back even if they come and attack us on the Sabbath. Because they had a right understanding of the Sabbath. The Sabbath is not a day that is meant to just say physically, not making any, not moving or not going from place to place, but it's a way for us to commune with God. So obviously, if we're wiped out, then we have no communion with God. We have no way to worship God. We are not spending any time with God because we're being destroyed. Okay. So this actually, you see then through the rest of the book of First Maccabees, how God works with this group, this third group, giving them victory after victory after victory after victory until they reclaim again their culture, they reclaim the temple, they rebuild everything, and they have success and victory over the Greeks. So when you look at these three groups, and specifically this third one, you get a sense of that we can defend. God will sanction that we defend against those who come and attack us. That doesn't mean that martyrdom is wrong. It doesn't mean that if we come and we're martyred that this is like an evil. No, actually this is a very noble thing, right? But it also doesn't mean that if someone is coming to attack me that I can't defend myself, and I can't defend myself even in the name of God. For instance, if someone comes into the church and is trying to deface the church and to vandalize the church and to kill the people in the church, we don't just sit back and say, well, this is God's will, we'll let them kill us. In Egypt, whenever things happen, they said, no, we need to defend ourselves. We put more bars on the door, we put metal detectors, we put all these things, because we're not going to just leave the door open for people to come and slaughter us and harm us and destroy us. We take action to defend against it. But again, we don't take revenge. After someone comes and bombs a church, we don't go bomb a mosque. Okay, that's not what we do. But we defend ourselves, and this is not considered to be evil. This is not considered to be violent, but this is considered to be self-protection.
Question here on the. I just want to get correction, by the way. I misspoke and I said those are in hell are going to be singing with Frank Sinatra. I shouldn't have said with. Because I'm not implying where he is. Okay, I should have said they would be singing his song. Okay, so I just want to make a correction. I'm not implying where he is. So their way, exactly. So I misspoke when I said with him. Question here. In the second lecture, why am I not an atheist? The answer to number 2, where did I come from? The second point, where did I come from, explains that life must come from a life giver. Many will then ask where the life giver's life comes from. Or the question could also be rephrased, who created God? Okay, the life giver is, we have to have a life giver who possesses the properties of life to impart life unto creation. Where did he get that life from? Now, there's in my book, Timeless Truth, I have a section or a chapter on who created God. And again, I have 4 pages that explain, not comprehensively, but at least, enough, the answer to the question, who created God. I would like to begin by saying that the question itself is a self-refuting question. It self-destructs. Why is that? Because not everything that exists must have a cause. Everything that has a beginning must have a cause. And God, by definition, is the unmoved mover, as Aristotle said. He is beginningless. Why is he beginningless? Because he is beyond time and space. He's spaceless and timeless. He created time and space. We, as time-space bound creatures, it becomes very difficult for us to think of a being who is outside of time and space. But God, being the beginningless God, is outside time and space. And if he's beginningless, then he is not caused. And if he's uncaused, then he's not created. It's like asking the question, who's the bachelor's wife? Well, if he's a bachelor, then he's unmarried, then he doesn't have a wife. If he is the uncreated, beginningless, timeless being, then he is uncaused, therefore uncreated. He exists. The theological expression here is that he exists necessarily. He must exist. Why is that? Everything in this world and universe can be placed in 2 categories. Mind or matter. That's it. Mind or matter. Everything else is either mind or matter. Either mind gave rise to matter, or matter gave rise to mind. Now we know that mind had a beginning, which leaves us with the only option. I'm sorry, did I say mind? Yeah. Matter had a beginning, forgive me. Matter had a beginning, which leaves us with the only option that mind produced matter. So mind preceded matter in existence. As I mentioned to you in the first lecture, is that mind must have created matter because it had what? The will to create. The will to create something out of nothing. In the book I have the gift of existence section here in Who Created God. I'll just read it to you. I say existence is like a gift given from the giver to the receiver. But the gift cannot be given if the giver does not have it in the first place. If there is no God who exists eternally, then the gift of existence cannot be given. And we can never get it, and you and I wouldn't be here. But since we're here, therefore there must exist an uncaused being who does not have to receive existence like us. This being is God. Now I also summed up saying, while our finite mind cannot fathom how God has always existed, it does not mean that it's illogical to believe it is so. A lot more can be said about this question. It's a very important question. Again, it's a question that can be asked by an adult, and also a question that can be asked by a little child who says, well, who created God? If you say God created everything. And to answer the little child, I borrow an analogy from His Grace Bishop Musa, Bishop of the Youth. He gave this analogy years back. The train analogy, and if you know the train analogy, who pulls the last card, the card in front of it, who pulls this card, the card in front of it, and who pulls this one, the one in front of it, and he goes all the way to the very first engine. And then the question to the child would be, who pulls this card? And the answer would be, it kind of pulls itself within itself. And then you can say, well, this is how God exists. He exists within Himself. He possesses the power or the gift of existence from within Himself.
Okay. How do you evangelize to Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, etc.? Now, that's an interesting question. So, first of all, for me personally, I don't know. I know a little bit about some of these groups, but not much. And I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever had any really close friends who have been Buddhists, Sikhs, or Hindus. So, what would I do? Does it mean I can't evangelize to them or can't? My answer is, the first thing is I would get to know them. Right? What's the answer to how do you evangelize anyone? Get to know them. And then if I'm talking with someone of a different faith tradition, or a faith tradition I know nothing about, so for example, I know a lot more about Roman Catholicism than I do about Sikhism, I would ask them, I would say, I don't know anything about Sikhism. Could you teach me about your faith tradition? I would really be interested to learn about it. And then just hear what they say. And so the very beginning would be getting to know them and getting to know about their faith. And then that would open up a dialogue, and they could say, well, are you a Christian or whatever? You see what I'm saying? And I could say, oh, that's interesting. You believe this? It's very similar to something that we Christians believe in, and so forth, blah, blah, blah. And so that's basically, I know it's a very short answer, but again, I would get to know them, and I would ask them to teach me about their faith. The one critical thing here, don't feel like you have to know everything about someone else's faith tradition before you can engage with them in an evangelical discourse. That's totally wrong. The point is, if you don't know anything about their faith tradition, ask them. Ask them in humility, right? Make yourself vulnerable. I don't know anything about this. Please teach me. And already that will establish a great relationship of trust, because they'll say, "Wow, that person cares enough about me to ask me about my religion, even though he's an Orthodox priest or whatever." That's really cool. So that would be my answer. And just again, if you don't know anything about someone, don't be afraid. Don't let that be a stumbling block to you. That's an opportunity to get to know them.
So someone asks, is there free will in paradise? And the answer is yes, there is free will. We receive free will because we are created in the image of God, and that doesn't cease to be in paradise. We continue to have free will. The difference is that we have no corruption. So we will not choose with our free will dumb choices like we maybe do now, right? So for instance, you can say, well, let's say you're in a place where there's a bonfire, okay, and you're standing next to the fire. You will, if you are of sane mind, never jump into the fire. Right? This isn't something that you will choose to do. Does that mean you don't have free will? No, you have free will. You can choose to jump into that fire if you really want, but you will never choose to do so because you understand how harmful it is for you and you won't do it. So in heaven, having put off the corrupted flesh, we will not have this temptation to sin. So we will choose always to do good things. And it doesn't mean that we're forced to do it like robots. It doesn't mean we lose our individuality. But we will just simply have no desire for evil like we have now. Because the source of the desire for evil is through our corrupted flesh. And so when we don't have it, we won't have a desire for evil. So again, it's not like we lose who we are, we don't have free will, but we will always use our free will for good, just as Christ did. Christ had free will, but he always chose to make good choices with his free will.
Yes,
So the last question, because it's 10:30. The question here that says, what do you say to an atheist who believes that life has no meaning, but still thinks that he can create a meaning of life just for himself to live by? And there are those, I'll share with you, that's why I wanted to put the screen up real quick. I want to share with you those who believed that they can create for themselves meaning outside of God. Of course, we have to define what we mean by meaning. according to their definition of meaning, they wanted to create their own joy, happiness outside of God. And they lived their lives accordingly. But when the moment of truth hit, which is on their deathbed, they cannot live their lie anymore. I'll share with you 4 or 5 excerpts from very famous atheists, existentialists, agnostics, who thought they can create meaning for themselves and joy for themselves. See what they said in their moment of truth. These are those famous atheists, and what they said here you can see on the screen. John Paul Sartre said this: "I needed God. I reached out for religion. I longed for it. It was the remedy. Had it been denied me, I would have invented it myself." He realized his deep-seated need for a God. Albert Camus, the other existentialist, said, "For anyone who's alone without God and without a master, the weight of days is dreadful." Again, they could not escape the fact that they needed that one to fill this inner void they have. They thought they could create meaning for themselves, but this is what the conclusion they came up to. Bertrand Russell, he admitted the need for God. He said, "Something in me, or something in one rather, seems to belong to God. I care passionately for this world and many things and people in it. And yet, what is it all? There must be something more important, one feels, though I don't believe there is." But he still had that need for a creator. Erich Fromm, psychologist, said, "The need for an object of devotion is deeply rooted in the condition of human existence." Lastly, Sigmund Freud wished if there was a God. He said, it would be very nice if there were a God who created the world and the moral order in the universe and afterlife. In summary, all of them deny God with the top of their mind, but cannot avoid Him in the bottom of their hearts. Those who say, "I don't need God to have meaning," they are denying Him with the top of their mind, but still cannot avoid Him in the bottom of their hearts.
Before we dismiss for the night, I just wanted to thank Father Sergius and George for spending time with us. I know George is going to be leaving early tomorrow. We have one more talk with Father Sergius tomorrow, God willing. So we just wanted to offer them a little token of our appreciation for coming. Thank you so much, Father. Thank you so much. So, God willing, the liturgy will be tomorrow at 8 a.m. So please come on time. I think I will be the only priest praying in the liturgy. So communion will take a little bit longer. So we'll try to go quickly so we can keep on schedule. And please, before you leave, if you can please organize all the chairs and have things ready so that in the morning we come and the church is ready to pray.
Just real quick, because I will not see you after the liturgy tomorrow. I just want to say thank Abuna Matthias so very much, and Father Sergius. I've learned so much from you, Father Sergius, the very practical and beautiful presentation that you had. This will help me personally in the ministry. I apologize. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for hosting, for organizing the retreat of Abuna Matthias so very much. I thank all of you. This has been a very fruitful, spiritually fulfilling retreat for myself. I've enjoyed my presence with you. I hope to see you again, and I thank you very, very, very much. Again, sincere blessing of mine.